Alrighty, good evening everyone. This is Senior Forecaster Cameron back here again, and I'm here to go over the tropics update with you guys here. And as the picture, the post is going to explain, all eyes is going to be on the Gulf of Mexico over the next couple of days here, guys. So what you're looking at here, the first thing you just look at here, you're like, what am I looking at here? It's just disorganized. Thunderstorms are all over the place. You don't have a defined center of low pressure yet, but within this mess, there is an invest in here. There is a little low pressure that they are keeping an eye on for the potential of development over the next 5 days in here. So this is Invest 95L, and although it is a very disorganized mess at this current time, we are expecting this activity to move northwest into Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico over the next 5 days here, which could potentially become a tropical depression and/or a tropical storm within those 5 days here, guys. So here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center here. As of 8 p.m., this is now a 40% area for the potential development here. And these two out here that I'm keeping my close eye on, and I'm going to explain later on in this video on why these two areas of interest will be a role player down the road for us here in Arkansas, because I don't think these are going to affect us directly here in Arkansas. I think it's going to play an indirect role in terms of bringing us that pattern change as we get towards later in this month, guys. But I'm going to get in that in just a little bit here. But my peak of attention right now is going to be right here with Invest 95L that will move into the Gulf of Mexico here, and some guidance is wanting to take this into Louisiana, possibly even Mississippi here, and come into Arkansas here with that southeast ridge in play. A track into Arkansas would be favored at this current time here. So although this thing is currently expected to be weak, we are going to be keeping an eye on it because the Gulf of Mexico still remains very warm. You got to remember, Dorian did not go into the Gulf of Mexico here, so the Gulf of Mexico is basically untouched at this current time here, except for the Western Gulf that had that tropical storm earlier on. But even with that, the Eastern Gulf has not been touched at all this season. So the Eastern Gulf is extremely warm right now. But we will be keeping an eye for the potential of some wind shear, possibly some dry air that could keep this system from developing here. But we will be keeping an eye on this system as we get towards the next couple of days here, guys. So here's the latest, like I said, for the tracks for Invest 95L. And here we are, the computer on guys is just now getting a hold of where the system is, so expect these tracks to change over the next couple of days here. So the majority does take it into the Gulf of Mexico, Florida, possibly Alabama, Mississippi here. I personally think it's going to be a little further west, given that you will have a southeast ridge in play that will likely steer this into the Gulf and possibly into Louisiana and Arkansas here as a weak system. I don't think this is going to explode to anything major, but we will be keeping a close eye on this system here, because as I talked about before, the Gulf of Mexico is extremely warm at this current time here, but there will be some wind shear that could prohibit this thing from really taking off in the Gulf of Mexico here, guys. So as I said before, there's current track. Now here's the intensity guidance with this system here, and you can clearly tell where the guidance kind of spreads out on. Some guidance don't even develop it at all. It keeps it very, very weak in nature. Most take it to tropical storm status, which I buy. I buy a mid-grade tropical storm out of this. Somewhat like kind of puts your mind of Gustav just a little bit, but it's not going to be nowhere near. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the intensity of Gustav, but that still remains to be seen. And there is some outliers that are wanting to bring this to near category 1 strength at this current time here, but there's a lot of uncertainties regarding on how fast it gets in the Gulf, how much time it spends in the Gulf, any potential wind shear, dry air interference that could keep this from being a really well pronounced system here. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out here, but otherwise, Invest 95L will more than likely push into the southern United States and will provide much needed rainfall, hopefully, to us here in Arkansas, because we need it desperately here, guys. There is a slight drought in southern Arkansas here, guys. So we will be keeping an eye on Invest 95L as he moves into the Gulf of Mexico here, guys. And I'm thinking within the next couple of days here, we could possibly see a tropical depression out of here, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and go over guidance with you guys real fast, and then I'm going to talk about these two interests of attention out here on the Atlantic Basin here, because this is where we call the main development region between the Leeward Islands and the Cape Verde Islands out here. So we will have to keep an eye on here, but I'm going to show you guys just a little bit on why I'm kind of concerned about those two areas of interest here. So as we get towards the next couple of days here, this is the Canadian model, by the way. I'm going to step you guys through the GFS, and I'm also going to step you guys through the European model here, guys. And there's Invest 95L. You can hardly tell here, but here's Invest 95L as we get towards the next couple of days here. And this is what the Canadian model wants to do. Wants to take into where, like I said before, where I'm thinking it's going to happen, to a very, very weak mid-grade tropical storm, makes a landfall in New Orleans, pushes up into Arkansas here. So it will be a weakened system, but it would bring beneficial rainfall to us here in Arkansas if you were to go with the Canadian model here. So as before that gets out of the way, but watch what happens here. Okay, I'm gonna step this back just a little bit here, just in case you missed it here. What's gonna end up happening here is you're gonna have this area of interest is going to pretty much die off, but a piece of it could be left behind and let this system here, this tropical wave coming off the African coastline, catch up to it, merge, and then develop into a system that could be what I call a role player down the road with this, because what's going to end up happening is this system could potentially move towards the southeast coastline, and then look what's going on here in the natural state. I'm going to take you guys to the natural state real fast. If you go with the Canadian model here, here's what's going on in the natural state with this. There's a cold front. There's a fall cold front that is pushing into the natural state here, which could potentially bring severe weather. We will have another video blog later on this week going over that potential, but there's a fall front that could be swinging through as we get towards next weekend here. So what could happen is what Dorian could have done if the timing was there, is gone up, brought that surge of cooler air down, and set us into fall here, guys. So there's a wait and see with this, but there is a good potential of a pattern change as we get towards next weekend and into the following weekend here, guys. So that remains to be seen. There's a lot of uncertainties with that right now, but that is the reason why I was kind of wanting to show you guys that, because what ends up happening is what we call a merger, gathers that energy together, really develops it into a system, and could make a run for the southeast coastline, but unfortunately it would go over the Bahamas, and the Bahamas really took a beating from Dorian here, guys. So they don't, even as a weak system, they don't need a system right now. So our best case scenario is something that merges together, pushes into the southeast, but misses the southeast, goes out to sea, but also brings that surge or cooler air down into the natural state here, guys. So that's what I wanted to go over with you guys here. And the GFS kind of does the same thing. So here's Invest 95L pushing into the Gulf of Mexico here. Is a weak system here, but as I said before, I'm thinking it could develop to at least a tropical depression, possibly a weak storm, makes a landfall somewhere in the Gulf Coast, brings beneficial rainfall here in the natural state here, guys. So as I talked about in the forecast earlier, that I have reflected that potential. So I have gone 30% for the potential of that tropical system coming up into Arkansas here. But as I said before, here's what happens with the system here, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you, I think, a better view of this real fast here, guys. So just bear with me for just a second here. So I'm gonna show you a better view of what I was talking about here. Sorry, I was gonna go to 850 so you guys can see. So you guys can see what I was talking about here. So there it is. There's a piece of energy right here, and there's also a piece of energy right over here. And watch as we get towards step it back just a little bit here. Sorry about that. As we get towards the next couple of days here, so there's that piece of energy here. All right, and then here's another piece of energy that's coming off the African coastline here, and you can see right there, merge. It just merges together into one system, and then that system really takes off because you add the extra lift, the extra moisture in place. That system really starts to take off, and it really develops it into a hurricane here. That's the GFS here. Really develops it into a hurricane here, and kind of meanders, because you got to remember, this system, along with another system that could be in play, would provide a pattern change here in Arkansas and to most of the eastern half of the country. So it kind of meanders here, but it gets out of the way. But as soon as it gets out of the way, it sends another surge of cooler air down into the natural state here, guys. So as I said before, there's a lot of interesting things that's fixing to happen as we get towards mid to late month here, and I've been hinting at it with the forecast here that we could see the potential for pattern change, but there's still a lot of uncertainties with this here, guys. So as I said before, if you got any interest along the Gulf of Mexico, along the Gulf Coast, please keep an eye on Invest 95L over the next couple of days here, guys. I'm gonna bring up the tracks one more time. So if you got any interest along the Louisiana, Mississippi, even the Alabama, or even the Florida Panhandle coastline, please keep an eye on this system here, because it could develop into a tropical depression, possibly a weak storm, as we get towards later this weekend into the early part of the next work week here. Main thing is that this thing will be moving into the Gulf and into the southern United States. It would bring beneficial rainfall, hopefully to us here in Arkansas, but I'm thinking it's going to be a landfall between Louisiana, possibly Mississippi here with this system here, if it can get going. But there's going to be some wind shear and some dry air that's going to kind of interfere with the system to keep it at bay. But there's a lot of things that need to come together over the next couple of days, you guys. So stay tuned. I will have another tropical blog as you get towards Thursdays with latest information with Invest 95L. And I will also have another blog as we get towards Friday and talk about the potential of a pattern change. Let guidance get a little more better with this. I'm going to see a little more consistency with guidance here before I really get into it, but I'm gonna wait till Friday and make a video blog and provide you guys with that information here, guys. So thank you guys for tuning into this video blog, and y'all have a great rest of your Tuesday evening.